A Simplex converted to a Great Western Railway Prairie Tank, part 97. This is the episode that I was not looking forward to making. Fitting the boiler and superstructure. Every part of the job proved quite difficult for various reasons. First, I attempted to seal the Waterslide Transfers using Phoenix Precision Paint's Satin Varnish. I placed the superstructure, which consists of the side tanks and the bunker tank, on a piece of soft material. I didn't put it directly onto the bench, so I didn't mark the other side. Here's a tin of satin varnish. I opened it and then I stirred it for quite a long time. Finally, I used a piece of cotton cloth to apply the varnish. Here it is, ready to go onto the transfers. I thought this would be okay, and maybe it would have been if the paint had have been gloss. In the end, it looked very patchy, so I wiped it all off. So that's one job that wasn't a success. Now for the difficult part. I generally work in the workshop by myself, and for this job I could have done with two people. In an ideal world, I should have been able to fit the boiler and then put the superstructure carefully on top of the whole thing. But no such luck. The balancing pipe arrangement was in the way. I placed the cardboard onto the top of the running boards so I could fit the superstructure and then lift it up to insert the boiler. With the superstructure roughly in position, it was time to connect the silicone rubber tubing to the inlet to the water pump. This was easy enough to do. What I hadn't realised at this stage was that the superstructure would need to go quite a long way further back, and I needed to prop it up like this. I used a piece of polyurethane foam for this job. And I almost forgot, before doing this job I scraped off the paint from the ring that sits inside the boiler. With hindsight, I should have masked this part off. Once I'd done that, I applied some lubricating oil. And here's the story so far. Looking very precarious, the superstructure is at this angle to allow me to slide the boiler into position from the rear. And this is where it started to go wrong. The end of the superheater stuck in the end of the chimney and the first boiler band fell off. And it's worth remembering that these two components are quite heavy. Luckily, I'm built like a tank, so I don't really have a problem with the physicality of it. This job took a lot longer than I'm showing on the video, and I could feel my strength starting to diminish with the weight. At this stage I was fully committed to the job and also aware that the paint was going to be damaged. When I got the job to this stage, I was able to have a bit of a rest. Even though the boiler band fell off the front of the boiler, it was perfectly fine. If you look on the smoke box, there's some water. That's sweat that's dripped off my nose. The job wasn't that difficult from a strength point of view, but the nervous tension was quite alarming. Here I'm using a piece of mahogany to lever the boiler into position in the smoke box. Locating and tightening the nut on the end of the superheater was quite difficult. Initially, aligning the parts took a while. But finally, with the help of my trusty Barco spanner, the union was tightened up without any damage to the nut whatsoever. I use adjustable spanners frequently, but they are Barco spanners. A lot of adjustable spanners are not good at all. Temporarily, I inserted the crossbar and refitted the smokebox door just to stop it flapping about. In the end, although some of the paint did get marked, it's looking okay. I really was glad when this part of the job was over. The next bit is simple. Polishing the steam dome using some Brasso wadding. As some anal train spotter viewers have pointed out, a steam dome like this is entirely wrong for a Great Western Railway Prairie Tank, but this is a Simplex, merely pretending to be a Great Western Railway Prairie Tank. And also, some Great Western locomotives did actually have steam domes. Some of the earlier ones before Mr. Churchward's designs, as far as I'm aware. But train spotting and knowing which model is which and which year they were produced is not my thing. This was difficult, tightening this nut onto the water bypass valve. There isn't much space to work in this area, but I got there in the end. All I can say about this miniature locomotive is that it's looking quite a lot better than it did when I first received it. The slight damage to the paintwork was just behind the final boiler band. Initially I touched in the damaged parts with a brush, and I will eventually repaint the small part behind the last boiler band using a high-quality flatty type paintbrush, so I should get a finish that's good enough. This is the whistle support, and the paint's dried now, so I can fit the whistles. The two brass whistles are dummies, but they look okay. It is possible to pipe dummy whistles, so when the main whistle underneath blows, a little bit of steam comes out of these, but I'm not going to bother in this case. This clip shows two things. I'm using a 1/2 inch by 26 threads per inch tap to clean out the paint in the holes where the safety valves fit. And the first coat of brushed paint is drying. Once it's thoroughly dry, I will carefully rub it down with some wet to dry sandpaper and give it a final top coat, and I think it will look alright. These are the pair of safety valves, and I've temporarily fitted them so you can see what it's going to look like. These are express type safety valves, but look okay on this engine too. Believe it or not, I lost these parts. I put them somewhere to dry and I couldn't find them, and in the end they were on the bench at the back. The paint is fully dry, so I'm fitting them where they're supposed to go. The engine's starting to look quite good really. Throughout this job I've tried not to get carried away, and repair and remake and paint the parts to match the existing engine's condition. I didn't really want it to look like a new engine because it's definitely not. The next job will be fitting the injector and piping the hand pump and water pump to the check valves on the boiler. But that's it for now. I'd just like to say stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.